G'day humans, Chris Stead from Finder here. Today I'm reviewing the HTC Vive Cosmos and the Vive Cosmos Elite. Now these headsets originally came out in 2019. At the time, their resolution, their refresh rate, the field of view were all pretty high end. They also had this really interesting gimmick where you could upgrade from the inside-out tracking of the Vive Cosmos to the Vive Cosmos Elite by changing the faceplates on the front, which is pretty novel at the time. The thing is, as of 2021, however, the HTC Vive Pro 2 has come out and blown these out of the water in terms of their specs. So today we're going to ask, is there still a place for the Vive Cosmos range in 2021? Let's dive in. Let's start by talking about the price. Now, the Vive Cosmos retails for $12.99 here in Australia. That's with the controllers, whereas the Cosmos Elite goes for $16.99. That's also with the controllers and the base stations, which are currently set up in the other room. So that's kind of for the full kit. Now you can just buy this as just the headset for about $1,099 here in Australia. However, I have seen it as low as $7.99. And the benefit of doing that is perhaps you want to upgrade to the newer base stations, because the kit comes with a base station 1, whereas you can get the base station 2, so you can upgrade to that and get different controllers if you like, such as the Valve Index controllers, which are my favorites. So if you can, decompartmentalize it and buy it that way. By comparison, the HTC Vive Pro 2 is $21.99 here in Australia, so there's a fair bit of a price difference there. And just for reference, you can get the Oculus Quest 2, which is another inside-out tracking headset for under $500. So this is kind of in the middle of those two extremes. So what's the difference between the two? Now, despite the fact that they use the term Elite to describe this one over here, they don't mean it in terms of better. They're actually got exactly the same specs inside and exactly the same design. It's more about just being different. So the Vive Cosmos uses inside-out tracking, which means there's no base station set up. You just put it on and use these particular types of controllers and you're tracked. And it's a bit easier for setup for obvious reasons, and you don't need as much space to set the whole entire thing up. Whereas this one uses the base station tracking that we've seen with the Vive Pro 2 and the Valve Index, for example. So that's the main difference between the two. Obviously, you have different controllers as a result. So you're using the old wand controller here. So this is the original wand controller, not the newer wand controller. The only difference is really that they work with the newer wand controller works with the new base stations. That's because this ships with the old base stations, the base stations 1. So that's just something that it's a bit unfortunate in my opinion. Like, why aren't they just shipping with the more modern stuff? But anyway, that's the only difference between the two, is that the way that they track. Other than that, they're pretty much identical. Now, on your travels around the internet, you may also have come across a Cosmos Play and a Cosmos XR variants of these headsets. Look, they're no longer listed on the Vive store here in Australia. I think they've probably been discontinued, and they really didn't get much buzz anyway. But for the record, the Cosmos Play is inside-out tracking, but you've only got 4 cameras, whereas this has 6 cameras in it. And the XR was like a VR and AR kind of variant that allows you to do both. But like I said, they're not available to buy anymore anyway. Now, as I just mentioned, both of these headsets have the exact same features, but just for the record, what you're getting is two 1440 by 1700 pixel LCD lenses. Like I said, they were kind of good back when it first came out, but now we've got the Pro 2, which is 2488 by 2488, so big improvement there. 90 Hertz refresh rate, 120 degree field of view, but I'll go into that in a bit more later because I'm not sure that's really hit. Stereo headphones, integrated mic, a 61 to 73 millimeter IPD range, and they weigh about 702 grams. Now, looking at the design of the two headsets, as you can see, they're pretty much identical other than different faceplates. Neither of them are that sexy, you know, like there's better looking headsets out there. The Focus 3 is a lot nicer, the Valve Index is a lot nicer. So, you know, they're not the most attractive of headsets, but as you can see, they're pretty much identical in terms of their design. I did find that they're reasonably comfortable to wear. They are a bit more front end heavy, and I guess that's where they're kind of showing their age in that, you know, like when you get the Pro 2, which I happen to have right here, this one just sits a lot more balanced on your head than you get with these, but they're still not too bad. You just tend to find yourself kind of like tightening it a lot tighter than you would like at the back, and that puts a bit of pressure around your forehead. So that's not so great. The design of the earphones is one of my big bugbears with this. They're just really flimsy. You can see they kind of just move between 2 spots there, and they're really hard to get into the right spot. They always feel like they're not sitting properly. The audio is not that great to begin with as well, and so when you have this kind of flimsy little ear design on here as well, that just adds to another issue to the mix. And you can see the headphone jack as well here. So what we do is we pull that off, and you can plug another headset into here, but you're going to need a female part for it, the way they've set it up. So it's just a bit awkward the way that they've done that as well. So the design is, look, it's not a great looking headset, but it's relatively comfortable. You don't get any bleed, which is important, like light bleed, sorry, into the mask. And it's well padded, but it's, like I said, just a bit front heavy, which makes you put a bit more pressure than you need on the back. But it is relatively easy to get into the sweet spot, so you got good focus. I probably should mention that one of the kind of keynote features when this originally came out in 2019 was the fact that you could take the mask and just flip it up like that, allowing you to kind of not take the whole headset off, but just get a view of the outside world. Obviously we see that in other headsets now, the Pro 2 does it, but what I found is that when you actually flick it up, it just becomes even more front heavy, so it's even more uncomfortable. And I just found myself using pass-through or just taking it off completely anyway. So let's talk about the controllers. Now, in terms of my opinion on what I've used so far up to the end of 2021, it's the Valve Index, which is probably my gold standard. It's my favorite controller. I know a lot of people complain about it, or not a lot of people, some people complain about it, but I actually find it fits the hand really, really well, sticks to your hand, all the buttons are where you want it to be, tracks beautifully. And for the inside-out tracking, I actually like the Oculus Quest 2. It's just neat and nice and handy and doesn't take up too much space. So when you compare it to those two, these controllers fall well behind. The one controller is actually okay, like it's just old. So you're using it, you got the trackpad up here, the triggers, everything sits where it needs to be. It's not awfully heavy. You get about 6 hours of battery life in it, which is middling. It's not great, but it's workable. Its biggest crime is it's just not as good as the Valve Index controller, and you can use it in the same ecosystem, the Valve Index controller, so you can just use that if you have it. These controllers, on the other hand, which go with the Vive Cosmos, are a different beast altogether. They're okay to hold, they're not a problem to hold. They've actually got their bit buttons and tracking in the right places, or the fingers and everything like that. Like it's not awkward in that thing, because the Focus 3 controller, which I have here, is kind of awkward to hold. That's not the case here. However, this weird egg-shaped halo you have on top, which lights up when it's on, is just a bit awkward. It's quite heavy, so it just topples you a little bit when you're using it. You can just get a bit more momentum with the weight of it. And it's a bit bulkier, so you kind of, when you're playing, you can make a bit more contact like this. Its biggest crime, however, is its battery life. So these take 2 AA batteries each, and you'd be dead set lucky to get 3 hours out of them. And that's just not good enough in my opinion. Like the Oculus Quest, like geez, it lasts months, this controller. Whereas these ones, you're going through them all the time, which beyond everything else is just really crap for the environment. So on the controller front, yeah, they're really showing their age, which is disappointing. Despite its age, when it comes to the actual performance, like the visual experience when you're in these great gaming worlds, actually they both perform still pretty well. Yeah, it's better in the Vive Pro 2 for sure, but it's not that much worse in the Cosmos Elite. That's the Cosmos Elite. And that's because really the software that we're seeing still isn't making the most of those maximum resolutions and power, and a lot of the game worlds rely on cartoony graphics and not the realistic visuals and worlds anyway. So you've got no screen door effect. Like I said, the bleed, there's no real light bleed. It's a little bit darker. I found the contrast isn't quite as good on these panels, but not noticeably worse. It's only if you hot swap between them like this and the Pro 2 that you'll actually pick up on it. Where it does start to struggle is on the field of view. It's advertised as a maximum of 120 to 110 degrees, but man, like these have like pretty periscope view. Like you can really see the black around the edges. It's a bit more tunnel vision than that. I just don't know if it's the software that's not pushing it to its limits, or it's just not really going to hit those advertised maximums. But the field of view on this is a noticeable step down from what you get in the Pro 2. In terms of the tracking, I was really happy with it. The controllers track fine. Originally, when this first came out, there were some complaints about the tracking of these controllers. However, it was kind of algorithm based and has been updated a fair bit since, and I encountered no real issues. So the tracking side of things is all pretty good. Audio, yeah, a bit of a letdown. It just doesn't have the punch and the impact that you want. Definitely next to the Pro 2. Like I'd just be ditching these and putting some earbuds in or some cans, like some proper headphones, if you really want a good audio experience, because the one that comes with it is just not up to 2021 standards. And as I mentioned, the battery life it's just a bit shocking as well. But you know, in terms of that just raw visual experience, just the immersion of just being in the world, it does it does deliver on that front. Despite being 2 years old at the time that I'm reviewing these, the Vive Cosmos and the Vive Cosmos Elite still deliver good PC VR experiences. Like, it's really quite solid. They track well, the visuals are quite good, and while I've got some concerns about the overall design, they're still reasonably comfortable and fine to wear for long periods while they're gaming. For the Cosmos Elite, I think it's just a question of price, because if you can get it for half the price of the Pro 2 or around about there for the kit, then that's really worth considering, because while the Pro 2 is definitely a much better headset, $1,000, so you can still jump into a great PC VR world here and play Steam VR games and into those ecosystems, so that's worth considering. With the Vive Cosmos though, it's a bit harder to recommend, because the field of view really isn't as good as it's advertised, and the controllers just have such woeful battery life, and you're still playing a pretty penny. So if you're looking for a kind of inside-out tracking experience, I'd be more tempted to go with just the Oculus Quest, which you can get for under $500, the Oculus Quest 2. And yeah, look, you're gonna have to buy an extra cable if you want to tether it to your PC, but it's still a really good gaming experience there. Okay, so those are my reviews of the HTC Vive Cosmos range. Make sure you check out my other VR reviews on the YouTube channel. Also, make sure you head over to the fire.com website, where I go into much more detail in my written review. Until next time, see you later.